back to the Mintner method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's episode, I'm going to break down the Big Ten championship game. Now, there are there are a couple of things that I think need to be voiced in this episode. First off, I feel like Ohio State losing to Michigan is just astronomically bad. They will still make the playoff, but I just like Ryan Day cannot win the big game. It's just proven time and time. He just can't do it. I don't know. And I can circle that point right here. And I feel the exact same way about James Franklin. Like Penn State, just Penn States forever and always, it seems like. So a lot of these statistics we're going to look at, I mean, they're almost, I don't want to say they're meaningless, but it feels that way because, like, Penn State is elite. They're very good, like, on paper. But when it's time to show up, like, God bless, they cannot be found. So, anyway, as you saw right away, I'm not going to take a ton of time to look at this. Both teams are very good in early downs. Not many weaknesses whatsoever, okay? When we come to the running back or the rushing side of it, both teams are very good. Also, on the lines, there's a little weakness here for Oregon, 61st in yards before contact, but really nothing crazy, right? So when we look at the rushing scheme, these teams are like similar, identical when it comes to how they want to run the ball. They both run it zone scheme the majority of the time. And that is, both teams are good at defending that. I mean, Oregon is not nearly as good. So if they were to find a team that really just runs from a zone perspective, they would be in trouble in certain areas. But I don't think that's going to be this game. All right. So when we go to the modern style offenses, we'll look real quick, try to make it through this as fast as possible for you guys. Oregon, they're very good in the play action, but they're better non-play action, which is something extremely, fortuitous, right? Penn State, again, I've noted this many a times this year. Andy Kotelnicki, as the offensive coordinator, has changed this entire team. So, I mean, and you can see that right there. All right, when we go to the motion side of it, Oregon is identical EPA, whether they're using motion or not using motion, elite top 10. Penn State is actually the best team in non-motion attempts, but they're using motion 60% of the time, right? So when we go to the most efficient passing play, Oregon does this at a high clip, 22.5% of the time. So does Penn State. Penn State is twice as good. They're better, at it. Whereas like in play action, non-motion attempts where they just line up and throw the ball, there's nobody better than Dillon Gabriel as it stands right now in college football. So we have that. So we'll take a look at the defenses, which I don't think there's going to be anything really here that's going to sway you one way or the other. Oregon's okay against play action, below a little bit above average. Penn State's good on both sides. Versus motion, you have much better against non-motion, but still a negative EPA. Penn State is the best defense against motion in college football, so that's something to think about and write home about. But they're still very good against non-motion attempts. Let's not get it twisted. Oregon actually struggles against this play action motion passing attempt, so that is a spot where Penn State can take advantage of them, and that is a spot that is something to look at going forward, right? And so let's look at the personnel matchups, which is something that you're going to see a little difference in looking at, okay? So Penn State is going to run 11 personnel at one of the lowest rates in the entire country, but they're second overall in efficiency in this area, right? They like to run out of 11 personnel also, which is something that is, the antithesis of what you would expect. They're very good at that. Same concept here. Both teams are really good. Like I hate to gloss over it like that, but it is what it is. The 12 personnel side, Penn State is ninth in 12 personnel percentage, 15th in EPA. Oregon does struggle against the run in 12 personnel. 82nd is not good. But the flip side to that is Penn State struggles against the pass. So, that's something that you need to kind of have in the back of your head, right? And so Oregon is better technically out of 12 personnel, a little bit better EPA, even though they're only running at 27% of the time. Now, from the advanced stats metrics, this is something that I've kind of, I've harped on, but we can kind of harp on it for both teams. Neither of these teams are explosive, okay? They might have big plays, but they are not explosive. Like, they are efficient offenses, okay? So that is something that you need to kind of, think about in the back of your head, right? Oregon is a more balanced Havoc team. They're 7th overall, 21.4%, but ranking top 20 in both front 7 and defensive back Havoc. And then, as you can see, neither of these teams, again, 108th in rushing explosiveness, 104th in rushing explosiveness. Neither of them are super explosive, right? So the key here, I think, as if you haven't caught on, is going to be based on the passing attacks, okay? So we're going to look, this is the Power 5 passing depth, so it's how they're doing against better competition, right? So let's look at the overall. So this is something I've touched base on, right? I'm not a fan of the behind the line of scrimmage shit, but Oregon is really good at it. So, I can't really get upset at them as much as I want to, right? Because I want to, but I can't, right? They're 5th overall in EPA. They're 3 times more efficient passing the ball behind the line of scrimmage than down the field, 1 to 9 yards. That's insane to me. Okay, Penn State also is very good at that, but they're also very good in the short area, 1 to 9 yards. That is why they're 1st overall in attempts 9 yards or less. Okay. Now, when we go to the big dog side of it, this is where we're going to get an interesting thought process. Okay. Oregon does not throw the ball in the medium part of the field. They're 69th out of 70, 14.9%. Penn State, on the other hand, lives in that area. They're 3rd overall, twice as many passes in the 11 to 19 yards, and their EPA is incredible, .383, but it's not as good as Oregon's, obviously. And then when we go to the deep attempt, both of these teams are extremely good on deep passes, but the issue is, Oregon almost does it twice as much as Penn State. And this is from the video earlier in the year when I had Penn State and USC, and I felt like Penn State could really take advantage. Or no, not it was Washington and Iowa. If you have a team that does not throw the ball a lot, say they're really good at throwing the ball deep, but they just don't throw it a lot down the field, it's almost irrelevant. You can't fit, a square peg in a round hole. It's just not going to work, right? So let's look at the defensive side of the ball here. On the short intermediate, you can see that Oregon is 8th overall. Penn State is 13th. This is somewhat concerning. 22nd is still good. This is a negative EPA. So the game will be decided probably there from the passing standpoint. But this is something that I think Penn State is going to have to shore up, okay? They're 44th in the medium range, 18th in deep attempts, but that gives them 32nd overall. So, out of 70, that's average, right? But the problem is the EPA, .259, is 12 times less efficient than the Oregon defense and defending those exact same plays. So, and I mean, this isn't even up for debate, okay? Dylan Gabriel is better than Drew Aller. It's not even close, right? So being that he's going to be able to take advantage of these type of plays down the field is terrifying if you're a Penn State fan. At least it should be. All right. I don't think looking at – excuse me. I'm so hungry. I'm sorry. I don't think looking at here, this isn't going to make big a difference when it comes to QB scrambles or QB design plays. But we are going to look at some of the game logs real quick. And you can see that Oregon, they trust Gabriel. 3,200 passing yards, 8.8 yards, 31 attempts per game. Like, there's trust there. He is, they are giving him the potential, or giving him the opportunity to lead this team. Similarly to when, they had Bo Nix or Justin Herbert, that is that's something they are, they trust him with, right? So when I look at their overall schedule, they haven't played like this elite schedule. I mean, Ohio State, Boise State, but they've done exactly what is expected of them, and I feel like that's kind of underrated to me. When you do exactly what's expected of you, it's almost as if like you're slighted for whatever reason, right? And when I come to the Penn State side of it, literally the only game that mattered on the schedule, they couldn't get it done. Okay? I mean, they struggled against Southern California, or against USC. I don't know why I said Southern California. And they struggled against Minnesota. Both of these games on the road, obviously, so there's like that factor that affects them. But it's pretty simple to me. I cannot back Penn State in a big game. They're going to have to prove it to me. Like, you're going to have to prove it to me. Alar is had a better season, I think. Let's look at him real quick. And 18 yards. But, they're only attempting 27 passes a game. He is not, this is a carbon copy type of, the only difference here is he's throwing it less. He threw it 100 times less than he did last year, and almost 5 times less a game. So the thing is, for me, you're just not going to be able to beat Oregon without being able to do something like catastrophically different than Ohio State did. Now, obviously, I feel like Ohio State should have won that game, but they didn't. Okay, so they did not win that game, and so and it was very close. Whereas Penn State's game against Ohio State, you never really felt like they were threatening to win. Nobody felt like, oh, they got them on the ropes, they're going to win this game, right? And so I just don't feel like James Franklin is not going to outcoach Dan Lannon, and Drew Aller's not going to outplay Dylan Gabriel. I just don't think it's going to happen. I could definitely be wrong, and we could wake up and be like, oh, Penn State just out-muscled them. They were too physical for them. This changes the whole landscape of the playoff. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Oregon's good. I don't want to say destroy them, but I don't think at any point in this game you're going to feel like Oregon was in jeopardy of losing. But anyway, that's going to be it for this episode. Thanks again. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, comment, share with a friend or loved one. I have one more video left for this series for the championship games, I've linked a Substack in the video, which is just where I do some writing, a couple articles here and there on some ancillary topics. And after we're done with this series, we're going to dive into the college football playoff when the bracket comes out and do more deep dives like this. Again, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.